Hello everyone, so going to try out a game of the men who would be kings using a scenario that I've taken from a set of rules called Sons of the Desert, and adapted it slightly. It's going to be a little bit different from the scenario in that rule book. Basically the scenario is that there is a relief force of 3 units of French Foreign Legion, who I've placed on the table already. I have tested this scenario once just to get my head around the rules, and the Foreign Legion did very badly, and it was mainly because they failed to arrive on the table as one force and didn't get very far across the table. But anyway, they are a relief force, and their aim is to get across the table and arrive at this fort here. Now, unfortunately, the fort has fallen. The gate has been blown down. There's a temporary barricade across the entrance there, but it's very apparent that the fort has fallen. They can see nothing but bodies, and the fort is on fire as well. So the idea of the game is that they have to arrive in the fort safely, and then try and repair the defences. And what's going to happen is that the Berber and Tuareg units are going to arrive on the table according to a setup that I've taken from another scenario in the game of Congo. So as the French Foreign Legion come down the road, there are various points such as here, every 2 feet effectively, and the Arab units are going to be rolling on a d10, and they need to score 5 or higher to come on various parts of the table. But once the French Foreign Legion gets a unit past there, then the Arabs are rolling on a d8, still needing 5+, and then when they get to this point here, the Arabs will only be rolling on a d6, but still needing a 5+. But depending on what they roll, so it could be 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 or 10, then they will come in on, that's 6 numbers, they will come in on one of 6 particular points on the table. So the French start with the initiative, and they are going to be rolling, first of all, basically just trying to move as quickly as they can down this road here. So I'll show you the dice rolls for that, and then I'll roll for the Arabs off camera and just place them on the table if they do manage to come on. Okay, now all 3 units are elite, which gives them a regular infantry as well, so they have a discipline of +2. So I'm going to order each one, or attempt to order each one, to move at the double. Now for regular infantry that isn't a free move, so they're going to have to roll dice to see if they can do it. And in this game, because there are so many units in play, the rulebook does suggest that you dispense with the leader abilities and traits and just have a uniform leadership value for all the units. So I'm giving them a leadership value of 6. So they need, on 2d6, they need to roll above 6 or above, in order to be able to to move. And as I say, I'm going to get them to move at the double. One thing I'm not entirely sure with these rules is why, if they don't have a free action of a move, why you don't just order them to move at the double all the time. There seems to be no difference between ordering them to move or move at the double. So I may have misunderstood that, may have got that wrong, but as far as I can tell, that's the case. The only difference is with some units you can move at the double and attack, whereas you can never move and attack. You have to give an order of attack. Anyway, let's get on with it. So first unit, they've got 6, but you add +2 to that, so they've easily done that. So moving at the double means they can move 6 inches plus a d6 die roll. So they're going to move 8 inches. Second unit, yeah, they've passed, so they are going to move 10 inches. And the third unit, 5, but that would fail, but they have discipline of +2, so they pass as well. And they are going to move 12 inches. Okay, so that's the 3 French Foreign Legion units moved up, and as you can see, they haven't quite got as far as the 2-foot point, which means that all the Tuareg and Berbers are going to be rolling on a d10 to see where they come on the table, and then they're also going to have to roll against their movement orders to see if they actually do come on the table, but they have to roll successfully to see where they're going to come on the table first of all. So I'll do all that off camera and place all the figures on the table and then show you where we're at, give you a little bit more of a view of the terrain on the table as well. Right then, so not very successful rolls for the Arab forces. They've got about half their units on the table. Starting here, these are I've defined these as tribal cavalry. So they've come on in that respect to the French Foreign Legion. So a little bit more about the terrain. I've got a few bits of terrain representing wadis, so I'm calling each side of the wadi an obstacle, so that's why that cavalry have had to stop at the obstacle. Then all the terrain on the table is going to be difficult terrain, which means most units will move at half speed across it, and it's also going to represent soft cover, so that won't affect cavalry. Cavalry doesn't really take advantage of cover in these rules. So they've stopped there. They will have to move at half speed across the wadi and stop again at the other end of the wadi, so it's going to take them a little while to move across. Show you what else is happening on the table. So this is another unit of tribal cavalry that have just entered a bit further up the table and are now crossing this difficult terrain, so that's slowing them down. And their relationship to the French Foreign Legion is that the French Foreign Legion is there. Okay, I should have explained at the beginning of the game, but I forgot to mention it, that there is already, inside this fort, there is already a unit of Tuareg infantry waiting in ambush in one of the buildings, so they are already on the table. Okay, and then on the other side of the table there is a unit of Berbers there who have reached another wadi on this side of the table, a unit of irregular cavalry and a unit of irregular infantry up there, all on the edge of this wadi. So that was the end. That was the end of the first turn. So now we're going to roll again to see what happens in the second turn. Okay, so in that turn, the Tuareg and Berber forces managed to get a few more units on the table, mainly over this side here, and some of the units that were already on have progressed across the wadi a little further. Slightly bad news for the French Foreign Legion in that unit failed its order, so didn't move, but the other two units have both got past that waypoint there, which means that in this turn the Arabs were rolling on a d8, needing 5 or above to come on the table. So it's getting harder for them to enter the table now. So there is still another, I think it's 2 units waiting to come on the table. This unit here, I made my own interpretation of the rules here, because this unit moved 12 inches across this difficult terrain. Now they have a movement rate of 12 inches, but that's halved by difficult terrain. However, they ordered, they passed an order to move at the double. So I interpreted that they had a 6-inch movement, but then a d6 additional roll in inches, and they rolled a 6. I don't think, but I might be wrong, but this is the way I'm going to play it, that you halve the d6 roll as well. So they managed to get practically out of the difficult terrain there, so they're very close to threatening the Legion. And over here, this unit of Berber cavalry has now reached the other side of the wadi, so they had to stop there, but they will be free to move at normal speed once they get over that obstacle. They will have to negotiate some more difficult terrain, however. But anyway, they're beginning to pose a threat now to the Foreign Legion. So it would be sensible at this point then, because regular infantry and irregular infantry get a free firing action, rather than risk them failing an order, I'm going to get this unit here to fire at this unit of cavalry here, and you measure from between the closest figures, so, and all the figures in the unit get to fire. So I have 12 figures firing at close range. The cavalry, as I said earlier, don't benefit from any cover, and the Foreign Legion need 5s to hit. So I'll show you that roll of the dice. Okay, 12 dice needing 5s to hit then. Oh, it's looking pretty good. Take out the misses. Blimey, we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 hits. Now you roll 2 dice, and if it's a double one, one of those is the leader. No, so out of 10 figures, the Berbers have lost 8. As I've said on previous occasions, I do find the firing rules in, the firing action in this set of rules very bloody indeed, which is why I've got the French heavily outnumbered. It's not equal in terms of points, this scenario. Okay, now the Berbers will obviously have to take a pin test. So they've lost 8 figures, so that's 8 off of the dice roll, 2d6, but they have a discipline of 1, which means it's 7 off the die roll. It's going to be difficult to get, in fact impossible, isn't it? It's impossible to get 6 or above. Yeah. So they are pinned. As I read the rules, they haven't failed a rally test, so they're still on the table. That was a pin test, but they will now need to rally, and as they're only going to have one pin marker, it will probably be easy for them to rally. But anyway, for the time being, they are pinned. Right, there we are. So I put a pin marker against the remaining 2 figures, and I've also put down on the table, just because I like it so much and it seems the appropriate moment to use it, a casualty figure depicting a Berber rider being brought down by gunfire. So ideal to use it at this moment, but it's just there for scenic effect. Doesn't signify anything in the game. Okay, so for the next French action, I think what I'm going to do is use this unit here as well to fire on the remaining figures there. See if I can just eliminate them entirely. And I think that all the figures in the unit have got line of sight at those remaining 2 figures. It's questionable whether this edge here just blocks the view, but I'm going to allow all 12 to fire. So another roll of the dice. Okay, so 12 dice again, needing 5s. And I've got 1, 2, 3, which means that those 2 figures come off the table and the unit is eliminated. Now it doesn't, I'll bring up another rule that I'm doubtful over at this point, and it doesn't apply in this circumstance, but the rule says that if a unit is wiped out, if there are any other units close by, and that's the only term it uses, then they have to take a pin test. Now there aren't any units close by, but the rules don't actually specify what close by is in terms of inches. I wish they would, because it's debatable how close a unit has to be before it takes a pin test when it sees a friendly unit wiped out. But anyway, I'm going to play this game that if that circumstance does arise, I'm not going to play it because it's doubtful what distance they need to be away. So I'll take those figures off the table in a moment, but the next thing I'm going to do is just roll to see. I'm going to order that unit to move forward at the double and just see how far they get. So they need to roll 2 dice with a discipline of +2, and they need over 6 in order to move at the double. So they roll 6, but that's increased to 8, so they've easily passed. So they're going to move 6 inches plus a d6 dice roll. So they're going to move 8 inches up the table. Right, there we are. So that middle unit has moved up now. You're supposed to keep an inch between individual units, but they're a bit squeezed in there between 2 templates of difficult terrain, and I know which unit's which, so I'm not going to fuss over that too much. So now what I'm going to do is move all the other units, the Berbers and Tuareg, roll to see if those other 2 units get on the table, and show you the end result of all that. Okay, so they failed to get any more units on the table, but in other respects the Arabs and the Berbers and Tuareg are making fairly good progress, especially here where that cavalry unit moved at the double and is now very close to the the 3 units of French Foreign Legion there. So I think at least 1 unit is going to have to remain stationary and fire at that unit there in the next go. And we are on to the next turn now. Okay, so 2 of the units have made very good progress. They both passed order tests to move at the double. 1 unit moved 10 inches, the other 12, so because one rolled 4 and the other 6. But this unit here now is very close in attack terms to that distant Berber infantry there, which is defined as tribal infantry, so it is allowed to attack at the double. So it could be attacked in a moment, but in the meantime, 1 unit of French Foreign Legion has remained behind, and they are going to fire now at these cavalry here. They're easily within 12 inches, and the soft cover doesn't provide any cover for the cavalry. So it's going to be another 12 dice needing 5s to hit. Not quite so good. I can see 1, 2, 3 casualties. So the Berber cavalry has taken hits from firing, which means they need to take a pin test. So they roll 2 dice. So they get a 6, from which they deduct 3, which takes them down to 3. And they do have a discipline value of 1, but that only takes them back up to 4. So they get a pin marker. So I also need to check if the leader was a casualty. So he is on as a double 1. No, he's got away with that. Okay, so it's now over to the Arab turn. So we'll start with that pinned unit, because the only action they can take is to attempt to rally. So they have 1 pin marker, but they have a discipline of 1, which means it's a straight roll on 2 dice, and they need to get 6 or above. All the leadership values in this game for every unit is 6, just to keep it simple. So they need to get 6 or above on 2d6 in order to rally off that pin marker. And they get a 10, so that pin marker can come off. Okay, that unit failed its move order, so it remains where it is. This unit passed its move order, so it's moved a little bit closer to the French Foreign Legion. And I'm now going to roll for this tribal infantry here, because they are, one of their special rules is that they can attack at the double. So they are going to roll to attack at the double that unit of French infantry there. So they need they need 6 or above. Sorry, fiddling with the camera angles here, trying to get the dice tray in. Okay, but they have got a they are fierce and elite. I've had to, because I haven't got that many Berber figures, I've bumped their points. They've been given a lot of buffs, so they've got a discipline of +2. So they need 6+ with +2 to the dice roll. Yeah, they roll 6, so they're going to move in at the double. So how many extra inches do they roll? Do they move? 4 inches, so that is, they've got a movement rate of 8 inches anyway. So that is 12 inches of movement, so they're easily going to make contact with the French Foreign Legion. Okay, so there's now a melee going on. There are 60, all the figures fight, regardless of whether they're in base-to-base contact. So there are 16 Berbers against 12 French Foreign Legions, and both units are fierce, which means they're hitting on 4 pluses. Okay, so French are white and the Berbers are yellow dice, hitting on 4s. Right, so I'll take out, carefully trying to not nudge any dice. So I can see 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 Berber hits against 1, 2, 3, 4 French Foreign Legion. Okay, I need to see if either of the 2 leaders were killed in that melee. No, so just take 7 casualties off of the French Foreign Legion, and they retreat 3 inches away from the enemy, and 4 casualties off of the Berbers, and the French Foreign Legion have to take a pin test. So they got a discipline of +2, but took 7 casualties, so they take 5 off this dice roll. So they only get a 4, which means they are also pinned. Okay, so I just completed the rest of the Arab turn. So this unit of cavalry has moved a little bit further forward. There's another unit of Berber infantry on the table now, and a unit of cavalry which successfully rolled on the D8, but then failed its move orders. So they're theoretically on the edge of the table, ready to come on in this sector here. And there is still 1 unit, I said 2 earlier, but there's a 3rd unit, which is Tuareg infantry, which fouled the D8 roll, so still hasn't got a sector of the table to come onto yet. So there's 1 unit still boxed away, waiting to come on into play. Okay, so next turn back to the French to activate, and first thing I'm going to do is try and rally that pinned unit there. So they have discipline of +2, they have 1 pin marker, so that means it's +1 to the dice roll, and they've got to get 6 or above. Oh, and they roll 6, so with +1 that would be 7. So they can take off that pin marker, but that's all they can do this turn. Okay, now the unit behind it is in a little bit of a difficult situation, because this is the unit here. Their view of that Berber infantry is blocked by this intervening unit that's just rallied its pin marker off. I'll just move this casualty marker out of the way for a moment. This is not relevant. If they move their full move, or even at the double, try and get closer to the fort, then they will certainly be attacked by this cavalry next turn, which is not good for them. Cavalry can attack for free move, so they won't have to roll for it, so they will definitely be attacked, and it takes 2 hits to take off 1 kill when it's infantry against cavalry. So I'm going to try and order them to make a skirmish move, which means they can move 6 inches and fire with half their figures at the cavalry. So they've got discipline of +2, so hopefully they should do this fairly easily. So they need 6 or above, and they've rolled 7, +2 is 9, so they can now move half a move and then fire at that cavalry. Okay, so notice that they haven't quite made it to the next waypoint. So that final unit that's got to come on will still be rolling on a D8 rather than a D6. But anyway, 6 figures from here, firing at that cavalry there, needing 5s to hit. Not bad, 3 hits. So the Berbers take 3 casualties. Let's roll to see. I'll use the white dice as they're handy. Roll to see if the leader is killed. No. So they take 3 casualties and then they have to roll for a pin test. Okay, so these are unenthusiastic tribal cavalry, so they got discipline of -1. So it's -1 for the discipline, -3 for the number of casualties, and they've got to get 6 or above. They roll a 9. -4 is 5, so they get a pin. And then the final French Foreign Legion unit to activate. I think it would be wise to fire at something, as that's a free move, free action. But they've got 2 potential targets. They've got the cavalry here and the cavalry here, both of which can reach them in the next move, attack them. So they're both viable targets. So I think they're going to fire at this unit here, which has already taken losses, and try and reduce it still further. Okay, so it's 12 dice hitting on 5s. One, two, three, four. 4 hits. So double 1 and the leader is dead. No. And then they have a discipline of +1, I believe. Yep. So what was it? 4 hits. I think it was 4. God, short-term memory problem. I'm going to say 4 hits. +1 for the discipline is -3 to the dice roll. So they've certainly failed, so they will get a pin. Okay, so it's now the Arab turn, and I've moved this unit here past an order to move. So it's moved up. It's taking the long way around this difficult terrain, swings and roundabouts really, but if it went across here it would only be moving 3 inches at a turn, and it has to pass an order test in order to move. So I figured it was going to be quicker for it to go around. This unit here has just passed its rally test, so it can take that pin marker off that it just received. And the next thing I'm going to do is this unit of cavalry here. There's a tiny bit, that doesn't count, that little marker there, but this is a tiny bit of difficult terrain, but they're easily within 12 inches of this unit here, and they can attack as a free action. So they are going to attack this unit here, and you'll see that cavalry is really advantaged in a melee. So this is where one of the Berber, or Tuareg in this case, strengths will show. So I'll just move them up and then we'll resolve the melee. Okay, so it's 12 French Foreign Legion dice against 8 Tuareg dice. The Tuaregs need 5s, the French Foreign Legion need 4s, but it's 2 hits for 1 kill in their case. Right, so we can take out anything below 4 for the French Foreign Legion. Anything below 5 for the Tuareg, who haven't rolled particularly well. So the Tuareg have 2 hits, And the French Foreign Legion 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. That gets rounded down to, or gets halved to 2.5, and that gets rounded down to 2. So it's 2 dice all, which means 2 kills on each side. Let's roll to see whether either leader is killed. Double 2 for the French, so they got away with it, and 2 and a 5 for the Tuareg. So in the case of a draw, it's the attacker who pulls back, but neither side takes a pin test. Okay, in the distance there, there's some infantry just crossing the wadi. They have a free action of a move, so they didn't have to roll for that. This Berber infantry here, though, is now going to attack this 5-strong unit of French Foreign Legion, so they do need to roll for that. They are fierce, so they've got discipline of +2, so they should pass the test, but we do have to roll for it. So 6 + 2 is 8, so yeah, they will move in and attack that French Foreign Legion unit. Well then, so it's 12 figures against 5. Both units are fierce, so they need 4s to hit. Take out all the 3s and below. And there were no French Foreign Legion hits whatsoever. But 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 French Foreign Tuareg hits, Berber hits. Now this would be a case in point where the rules do say that if a unit is wiped out, and it is, that any units close by should take a pin test. So I'm not forgetting that rule, I'm ignoring it, because as I said earlier, there is no definition of what close is. I mean, that is certainly close, but because they haven't said it's 6 inches or 4 inches or whatever, I'm just going to say I'm going to ignore the rule. I did say that at the beginning. You know, maybe if I play this again, then I would make up my own distance, and that would certainly require a pin test, but I did say at the beginning I wasn't going to do it, so I'm not going to do it. So I'm just going to remove that unit there, so that's a bit of a disaster for the French. Okay, now fortunately for the French Foreign Legion, the Tuareg cavalry there are pinned, so they can't attack this unit here now, so all they can do is rally. So they are unenthusiastic, which means they've got discipline of -1, and they have 1 pin marker, so that is 2 off of their dice roll. So they fail, which means they get another pin marker. No, I beg your pardon, they retain the pin marker they've got, but they don't get another one. They would have done if it was a pin test, but it was a rally test, so they failed to rally. And it was above 2, so they don't get taken off the table. Okay, I've just completed the Arab moves. The camels in the distance there have now got onto the table and have reached the first edge of the wadi, so they had to stop there to overcome the obstacle, and that final unit of Tuareg is now on the table. They came on in this sector here, so as previously I'm moving them around this difficult terrain rather than over it, but they passed an order to move at the double, so they are trying to cut that unit there off from the gate now. So it's looking fairly well balanced, I'd say. I'm quite pleased with the way this has worked out. It's a bit of an odd scenario in that it's not one taken from the book, but it seems to be playing fairly well, equally balanced. Having said that, we'll have to see how it goes with the next turn. Okay, so back to French turn, and been wondering what to do now. I think the safest thing to do, rather than rush this unit towards the fort, is to get them to fire at close range there on that Berber unit, who they can do that without having to pass an order test, 'cause firing is a free action for them. Whereas if they move, they have to pass an order test, and although they've got a high discipline, they can potentially still fail that move, and that leaves them very vulnerable. So I think that's the sensible thing to do, is to try and pin that Berber unit so that they then, have greater freedom to move. So there are 12 figures, and they're hitting on 5s. And they have 1, 2, 3, 4 hits. Yeah, 4 hits. So the Berbers have to make sure that the leader wasn't killed, first of all, which he will be on a double 1. No, he's alright. And then they have to roll for a pin test. So that unit has a discipline of +2. So they took 4 casualties, so that's -2 to the pin test. Oh, and they failed it. They rolled a 6, so they're down to 4. So they get a pin as well, so that's ideal. That's what the French were hoping to achieve. Okay, now with the second and last remaining French Foreign Legion unit, basically they've got 2 viable targets here, both cavalry that will be able to attack them in their turn. Neither of them are pinned now. So they're going to fire at the larger unit, so the Tuareg cavalry, which has got 1, 2, 3, 4, 6 figures. So there are 10 figures firing at them. Again, because it's short range, needing 5s to hit. And they get 2. There's 2 5s down the bottom there. Not a very good roll, but hopefully that will pin the Tuareg. Okay, need to check that the leader wasn't killed first of all. No, so I'm going to take 2 figures off. They have a discipline of 0, so it's just -2 to the die roll now to see if they're pinned. And they only rolled a 5, so it's down to 3, so they are definitely pinned. Back to the Arab turn. I've moved this unit here. They passed an order to move, so they've moved 6 inches further. Now we're going to deal with this unit here, and they are within move distance of the French Foreign Legion and can attack as a free action. So just going to move those into melee. So it's 4 figures against 10. French are hitting on 4s. The Berbers are hitting on 5s, but the French need 2 hits to kill 1 model. So the French have done pretty well. Tuaregs haven't got any hits at all. Let's just take out. So the French are putting up a stout fight. So that's 4 hits, which means 2 kills. Okay, we'll roll to see if the leader was one of those killed. No. And then the 2 remaining figures will retreat 6 inches and roll for a pin test. They've got discipline of +1, so they took 2 casualties, so it's -1 off the die roll. So they pass that, so they're not pinned, which is unfortunate for the French because they're still going to pose a threat next turn. Just completed the Arab section of the turn. That unit there failed to move. The 3 units that were pinned, so this one, that infantry and that cavalry, all successfully removed their pins. This unit here has moved a little bit closer, as has this unit of cavalry. So now it's back to the French. Well, the French have been a little bit unlucky in that the Arabs managed to dispose of all their pins from all their units. So there's nothing for it really other than to carry on using the superior firepower rather than try and move them and risk them failing the order. So this unit here is going to fire at these 4 remaining cavalry figures there. So there are 10 of those, so it's 10 dice hitting on 5s. So they have got 2 hits. So Tuareg need to ascertain whether the leader is one of them, and he's not. So they take a pin test, and they've got a discipline of 0, so it's dice roll -2. Oh, they failed badly, but I don't think that, if that had been a rally, that would have been bad for them. But it's not. It just means that they take 2 casualties and are pinned. Okay, and then this unit is in danger from the infantry and the cavalry, but the cavalry have a free action to attack, so they're probably the greatest threat. So I'm going to fire these at those. So there are 12 figures in this case, again hitting on 5s. Showing you the dice tray. And that's a little bit better. I can see 1, 2, 3, 4 hits. So again, we have to ascertain whether the leader is one of those casualties. No. So they take a pin test. These are the unenthusiastic unit. So it's -5, 4 for the casualties and 1 for the discipline, -1 for the discipline. So dice roll -5. Yep, they're definitely pinned. Back to the Berbers, and the Berbers and Tuareg. So that Tuareg unit there is outside of attack distance of the Foreign Legion, whereas the 2 remaining casualty figures here are within attack distance and can attack as a free action. So even though they're heavily outnumbered now, they are going to persist and attack again. So they have 2 dice against 10. And I remember rightly, it's the same again, hitting on 4s for the French, 5s for the Berbers, but the French need 2 hits for each card. Yeah, so the Berbers have killed 1 and the French have killed the 2 remaining figures. So the French just need to roll to make sure their 1 loss isn't the leader. Very nearly was, 2 and a 1. Okay, so those Tuareg there have moved a little bit closer. The 2 cavalry figures behind the palm tree there, you can't see very well, have successfully rallied off their pinned marker. I've decided what I'm going to do with these figures here now. They're within 6 inches of the French Foreign Legion, so they're going to fire. They've got ragtag muskets and spears, so they can only fire within 6 inches, and they will need 6 to hit. And first of all, they have to pass an order test in order to be able to do that, and they are highly disciplined, so they've got +2, so they should, excuse me, looking at the camera, they should be able to fire. Yeah, I'll do that easily. So 3, 6, 8 figures hitting on 6s. And if they're lucky, just got to get some dice. Yeah, if they're lucky, I'll put a pin on the unit. So 8 dice hitting on 6s. 1 hit. Have to roll to check that it's not their leader. No. And then they take a discipline test. So they've got discipline of +2, so it's the dice roll minus +1. And they don't make it. They only roll a 5, so they do get a pin. Okay, I completed the Arab move. This unit failed to move again. The unit here has moved a lot closer, as has the camel unit, and this unit of 3 figures here, sorry, you can't see this unit here, rallied off its pin marker. So it's looking precarious for the French, but their superior firepower certainly tells, but they still haven't achieved their aim of reaching the fort, which is just there. There's the gate of the fort, but of course you and I know, but they don't know, that there's another unit of Tuareg waiting to ambush them from inside the fort. But yeah, I think it's, you know, it's an enjoyable game, and it's pretty well balanced. It still could go either way, I reckon. So it's back to the French now. Well, this unit here we know has to rally off its pin marker and can't do anything else. So let's do that first of all. Okay, they've got discipline of +2, 1 pin marker, so they get +1 to their die roll. Oh, and they roll a double 1. Now, if you rally, oh no. Oh, the final total is above 2, so they've just they failed the rally, but luckily for them, if the total is 2 or less, the unit immediately routs. They very nearly routed there. That came out of the blue. But what they do is immediately retreat half a move. Yeah. So they're surrounded on all sides, so this might seem a little bit cheesy, but I think the realistic retreat movement would be towards the gate of the fort, because any other way they've got the unit here. As I say, they're surrounded on all sides. So I'm going to do that. That was a really unlucky break. So I'm going to move them a little bit closer to the gate of the fort. Right, there we are then. So I don't think that was unfair. They're going to retreat towards what appears to be safety, aren't they? So back down the road, we have to decide what to do with this unit here, and I think they are going to fire at this unit of Tuareg here. So it's 9 figures hitting on 5s. 1, 2. Not brilliant. 2 hits anyway. Better than none. And check to make sure one of those isn't the leader. Again, very nearly, a 2 and a 1. So the Tuareg now roll, they've got a discipline of 0, they've got to roll a pin test on -2, and they fail it, so they are pinned, so some joy for the French at least. Okay, back to the Arab turn then, and those Tuareg are going to attempt to rally off the pin marker. So they've got a discipline of 0, 1 pin marker, so it's -1 to the dice roll, and they roll 8, goes down to 7, so they successfully rally off the marker. And the cavalry unit there are within attack distance and attack as a free action, so even though there's only 2 figures, they will attack. So it's 9 versus 2. Okay, French hitting on 4s but needing 2 hits per kill, and the Tuareg hitting on 5s. So the Tuareg don't get any hits. The French get 1, 2. So that is 1 kill. Check to see if it's the leader. It isn't. Roll for pinning. So it's -1, 7, 6, so just do it. So they just retreat 6 inches. Right, down the other end, the unit of Tuareg there, the infantry, have managed to move another 6 inches closer to the French Foreign Legion unit. So what I'm going to do next is there's a unit of 3 unenthusiastic tribal cavalry there, so they can attack as a free action. So rather than get them to fail an order, they're within 12 inches of that unit, so they are going to be attacking that unit next. Right, there we are. So the French are pinned, which means they've got 11 figures, but that they only use half of them rounded down, so that means they're rolling 5 dice against the Tuareg 3. And the Tuaregs are hitting on 5s, as usual, and the French on 4s, needing 2 hits per kill because they're fighting against mounted troops. So the French get 3 hits, that rounds down to 1 kill, and the Tuareg get none. Which means the Tuareg lose. Just roll to see if the leader is killed. No. Okay, I've moved them back half a move, but we just need to check whether they are pinned or not. So they've got -1 discipline, and they took 1 casualty, so this is 2 off the dice roll. 10 minus 2 is 8, so they're fine. Okay, the next thing, which is more serious for the French, is that this camel unit is within 12. So again, they get attack as a free action, and they have 10 figures, so they're going to pile in and attack the French next. Right, there we are then. So this is looking a bit desperate now for the French. It's 10 dice against 5. Tuareg hitting on 5s, French hitting on 4s. Tuareg hitting on 5s. They get 1 hit. Right, the French are storming it now. 1, 2, 3, 4 hits. That's brilliant, but that reduces down to 2 hits per kill, so that's 2 against 1, but it's still a win. Both sides have to roll to check that their leader isn't killed though. So double 1, and the leader is killed. Again, very close though, 2 and a 1. But neither side has lost its leader. The losing side have to check for pin as well. So they took 2 casualties and they got a discipline of 0, so it's -2 off the dice roll. They're fine, they rolled a 10, so it goes down to 8. So I've moved them back 6 inches, half a move. Okay, now the Berber unit here is tribal infantry, which means they can move 8 inches. They are just outside of 8 inches of the French Foreign Legion unit, but they are allowed to attack at the double. So they have to roll for that, it's not a free action, but it makes sense for them to attempt to attack whilst the French Foreign Legion is pinned and is only rolling half its dice in melee. So they are also quite highly disciplined, +2, because they're fierce. Well, no, because they're elite. I think that's why they're +2. So let's roll 2 dice and see what they get. Whether they're able to attack at the double. They are, because they rolled 10, so that's 12, so they need another 2, at least 2, to be able to reach the French. And they rolled 4, so they can move 12 inches. Okay, now I don't see how this can go well for the French. There's 16 Berbers against what is effectively 5 dice on the French side, because they're halving it because they're pinned, and both sides are hitting on 4s. So I'm sure the Berbers are going to win this. Okay, both sides hitting on 4s. Right, so I can see 3 hits for the French and 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. It's not brilliant, but it's still a win. 5 hits for the Berbers in this case. Again, we have to roll to see if either leader is killed. Yes. Right. So God, this is so finely balanced, but the Berber leader is killed, which means the leadership value is now gone up to 8 rather than 6. So it has to beat an 8 on the dice rolls. So right, I'll just remove the figures and then show you what happens next. The French took 5 casualties. They are disciplined 2. That means you subtract 3 from the pin test to see if they take another pin marker. 7 minus 3 is 4, so they do take another pin marker. And also they have to retreat, so I'm going to move them similarly towards the fort. Half a move, which is 3 inches. So effectively they reach the obstacle of the barricade, so they have to stop there. But next turn they will be allowed to climb over into the fort. And that's 1 pin marker, so they need another one. So the next turn they're going to have to try and rally before they can climb over the barricade. Okay, and then finally, I don't think, forgive me if my memory is going, but I don't think I've done anything with that unit of Berbers there. So they are going to move back down the road towards that infantry there and cut them off from the fort. Right, so they've ended up here. Because they're tribal infantry, they could move as a free action, so they didn't have to roll for that. So now we're back to the French, and first thing I'm going to do is attempt to rally the pins off that unit there. So they have 2 pins, but they have a discipline of 2, so it's a straightforward roll, and they need to get 6 or better on 2d6 in order to rally both those pins off. So they can do better than their last roll, which nearly resulted in them leaving the table. 10, yeah, straightforward 10, so both those pin markers come off, but they can't do anything else for the rest of their turn. Okay, so that's the situation now down that end, but here the French have got enemies on all sides as well here, so I think this unit here is just going to fire at that unit there, try and clear a bit of a path towards the fort. 9 dice sitting on 5s. 1, 2, 3, 4 hits. Not bad. Yeah, 4 hits. Check to see if the leader's one of those. No. Okay, so the Berbers got a discipline of 2. They took 4 casualties, which means -2 off the dice roll to see if they're pinned. They are. 6 minus 2 is 4, so they foul, so they get 1 pin. Okay, we're now back to the Arab turn, so I'm immediately going to see if that rallies off. So now they have a discipline of 2 and 1 pin marker, so they add 1 to the dice roll to see if they rally it off. They do, yeah, but that's all they're going to be able to do this turn. So I'll just take that marker off away from the camera and then show you what's going to happen next. Okay, so I'm going to start, because it's a free action, this final lonely leader figure is going to attack and with any luck inflict 1 casualty. So it's 9 dice against 1, French needing 4s, Tuareg needing 5s. Right, I thought I was recording then, but obviously wasn't. So the result of that melee, sorry, I don't know what happened there. Obviously forgot to press the record button. The cavalry figure attacked, and the result of the melee was a draw with one figure killed on each side. So that's obviously the single final figure there. But the French lost one figure, but it wasn't the leader. So they're now down to 8 figures. So next up, what I'm going to do is roll to see if this Tuareg unit can attack that unit there, because they are now within 6 inches. So the discipline 0, so it's straightforward dice roll needing 6. And they fail. So a little bit of luck there for the French. Okay, things look pretty bad here for the French, and they've got 1, 2, 3, 4 units, 3 of which I would say are all in contact range of distance of them. But the good news is that any defeat in melee is going to drive them back over that barricade into the fort. So I'm going to start by rolling to see if this tribal infantry here can attack them. So it's +2 to the dice roll, discipline of 2. Yep, so they go in. So it's 13 figures against 5, both sides needing 4s to hit. So the Berbers have 1, 2, only 3, but the French have 2. So the French have lost. Need to roll again to check if either leader has been killed. That was the unit that had lost. Yeah, oh, sorry, losing track of the game now, but I think that was the unit that the Berbers had lost their leader from. Or was it? But they rolled well, they rolled above 8, didn't they, to attack? So, yeah, that's right, they did. Okay, so I don't need to check if the Berbers have lost their leader, which they hadn't. The French haven't either. Right, so the 2 remaining French figures in that unit are pushed back beyond the barricade, so they're not actually at the barricade, and they have to roll to see if they're pinned. So they got discipline of 2, they lost 3 casualties, so they're rolling on a -1, and they fail, so they're pinned. Right, things are looking really dire now for the French. This unit here successfully rolled to move, so it's got a little bit closer to the gates of the fort. The unit of Tuareg who were hiding in the buildings has successfully rolled to emerge from the building in the fort here, and they're threatening that tiny unit now from inside the fort. And the cavalry and the camelry are just going to stand to for the moment. You know, they're there really to deal with that other French unit there if they manage to survive. So it's back to the French turn now. So only thing we can do down here with these 2 figures is to try and rally off that pin marker again. That's all they can do. Okay, so they've got discipline 2, 1 pin marker, so it's +1 to the die roll. And they succeed, so that comes off. And here, they're down to 8 figures now, going to fire at these Berbers here. So it's 8 dice needing 5s to hit. 1, 2 hits. And was the leader one of them? No. Okay, so they need to see if they're pinned. So they took 2 hits, they've got a discipline of 2, so that equalises out, and it's just straightforward dice roll, and they roll an 8, so they're okay. And then it's now over to the Arabs for their turn. Okay, so they haven't got a pin to rally off, so they can actually do something this turn. So they're going to fire their ragtag muskets at the French. So that needs, they're within 6 inches and they need 6s to hit. First of all, they need to make sure they can. It's not a free action, so they need to pass an order test. So discipline +2. 2, yep, so they do, they pass. So 2 6s they need. They get 1 6, so 1 casualty. Was it the leader? No. French need to see if they're pinned. So it's 2 discipline, 1 casualty, +1 to the dice. They're fine. And then next up, the Tuareg who are pursuing them are going to roll to see if they can attack. So they have a discipline of 0, so it's straightforward dice roll. And they can, they move into melee. Right, there we are. It's 10 Tuareg against 7 French. French need 4s to hit, the Tuareg need 6s. Right, the French have done brilliantly. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 hits. And the Tuareg have got 2 hits. Roll to see if either leader is killed. No. And then roll to see if the Tuareg get a pin. So they're on 0 discipline, -6. So they're bound to get a pin, aren't they? 12. No, not necessarily. Not necessarily. They are now. Yeah. So they get a pin and they move back half a move. Okay, so I've carried on with some moves since that melee. So I've ordered they passed an order test and were able to move the camels here up. They're not going to be able to do much in the fort, so now they're moving back down to deal with that French unit there. And at the gate of the fort, this unit has successfully moved up to the barricade, which is an obstacle, so it has to stop there. This unit is going to stand to, as is the 2 cavalry figures there. But now, this is the decisive moment, I think. I'm going to order this unit to attack those 2 figures. So they are discipline of 0, so they just need to get above 6 on a roll of 2d6. Yeah, well, they got 6, so it's 6 or above. I said above 6, but 6 or above. So they can move into melee now. Okay, so it's 12 figures hitting on 6 against 2 figures hitting on 4s. Well, 2 6s there, that wipes the French out. And the French don't get any hits in return. So that is the end of that unit there. Okay, so those 2 figures come off the table. And it's pretty much over for the French now, but I'll carry on playing to the last man. And it is the French turn now. Okay, well, this unit here is pinned at the moment. So even though this is a small unit of only 2 figures, it does pose the greater threat. So those 5 figures are going to fire at those 2 figures there. So it's 5 dice needing 5s to hit. Sorry, again, made a mistake. Thought I was recording and I wasn't, but I've just rolled 5 dice, needing 5s to hit, and rolled 2 5s, so they have wiped out that unit of 2 Berbers. Okay, so it's back to the Arab turn. I've just tried to rally these figures here. Failed, so they had to retreat another half a move. And next up, what I'm going to do is the cavalry here is within 12 inches, so they can attack as a free action. So they are going to move into melee with that those last few French figures there. Okay, there we go. It's 8 Tuareg against 5 French. The Tuareg need 5s, the French need 4s, but the French have to have 2 hits for 1 kill. Right, so Tuareg need 5s, so they have 3 hits. The French need 4s, and they have 3 hits, but that reduces down to 1 kill, so the Tuareg win that melee 3-1. Just going to roll to see if either leader was killed. No? Okay, the French pinned, so they lost 3 casualties, have a discipline of 2, so it's -1 off the roll. Yes, they are pinned and they're pushed back. Okay, believe it or not, this is the first time that a mounted unit has won a melee in this game. And I was saying earlier how powerful the cavalry units are in melee, and this is now the time to show you, because the mounted units, as long as they're not mounted infantry, have a follow-up ability. So if they push a unit back, they can immediately pursue and fight another round of melee. So we're now going to fight another melee with 7 figures against 2. The Tuareg hitting on 5s, the French hitting on 4s, but needing 2 hits to inflict a kill. Right, well, the French get 1 kill. The Tuareg get, what did I say, 5s they needed? 1, 2, 3, so they wipe the unit out. So let's just see, for the sake of completion, whether the French managed to kill the leader with that 1 casualty. No, they don't. And in fact, I made a slight mistake there, because the French being pinned, they would only have rolled 1 dice, so they had no chance of inflicting any casualties at all. But that's academic really, because they've now been wiped out. Right, there we are then, that's the end of the game. The French completely annihilated. So the Arabs have the field. I thought that was a much more balanced game, even though it was a pretty decisive victory for the Arabs. That was a much more balanced game than the last game of the Men Who Would Be Kings game that I played, which the French won very easily. And that was when, in that game previously, both sides had equal number of points. In this game, the Arabs had double the number of points of the French, but I still think it was better balanced, because I had that feeling right the way through, virtually to the end, that the French did have some chance of winning. Had the Arab units come onto the table more slowly, which is all down to the dice. Had the dice been a little bit luckier for the French, they might possibly have won. So now, in future I'm going to be painting more French Foreign Legion figures, so I can just slowly build up my French Foreign Legion force until I get a game which is more finely balanced. So I'm pleased with that, and it was a good scenario. It was a chance to use my fort, which doesn't feature in the many Would-Be Kings rules. Fortifications, the buildings do, but not fortifications. So yeah, had a good time. I hope you enjoyed watching it, and see you on the next video. Bye for now.